Welcome back, everybody. It's your time to ed up on the EdUp Experience podcast, where we make education your business. Dr. Joe Sallustio back with you again and again and again. There is absolutely no stopping here at the EdUp Experience, and I tell you that my business partner, co-founder of the EdUp Experience, Alvin Freitas, has me booked out every day, Monday through Friday, for a minimum of 3 months doing this podcast. Every month it goes by, another month books up, but I do love what I do, and people often ask me, when am I going to stop podcasting? And this is what I tell them.
You'll have to kill me to be finished with me.
And so I keep coming back, and we try to bring back impactful leaders, not only that are impacting higher education and students right now, because so many of the leaders that we talk to are doing that. But this particular leader who we have with us, by the way, she's very hard to get, right? She's very hard to get on a podcast, very hard to get. And so we have to go through all of the people that she works with who are very nice, but then they're like, she's busy. A year goes by. No, it wasn't that long. We had her on a couple years ago, and we said to her, guest, we need your help, because one of the things that we didn't have in our President series at the time was very powerful, or not many, very powerful female Latina leaders in higher education. We looked at the presidents we were having on, and we're getting the diversity we wanted. And she sent us an email right away with, 15, 18 amazingly powerful women with a Latina background on this list. And I think we've had 15 of the 18 on this podcast, all due to this guest. And we'll talk about the great work she's doing too. Let's get her in. Let me get her ready. She doesn't know what's happening because we didn't have sound effects last time. Ladies and gentlemen, she's Dr. Mildred Garcia. She's the chancellor at the Cal State University System. Millie, welcome back to an EdUp Mike. How are you?
How are you, Dr. Joe? Thank you for inviting me again.
It's been a while. Last time we were with you, you were CEO and president of ASCU. And I think, did you move cross country now? Were you based in the East Coast?
Cross country from Washington, D.C. to Long Beach, California.
Well, weather's a bit better in Long Beach, I would say.
True.
Yeah. You have you probably have the same amount of policy people in and around you at this time.
Absolutely. Maybe more.
Maybe more in a different way. Talk about the first question I have for you is just about transition, Millie, and I want to talk about the great women you introduced us to a little bit later. But you go from leading an association, and I got to meet you in person, which is like a big deal for me to meet all these people I interview at an ASCU conference in Puerto Rico recently, which was a lot of fun. And you go and you move cross country. You're leading an association of presidents, which is a totally different view, I think. Now going to Cal State, you're walking into one of the largest systems in the world. There are just so many colleges, so many presidents, so many stakeholders. What was that transition like for you as a leader? Because I know you've managed schools before, you've been a chancellor, CEO before, but still going from there cross country. What was it like, and how has it been? At Ellucian Live 2025, we're going to explore the magic of innovation. We want to imagine, believe, and achieve. It's happening April 6th through 9th, 2025 in Orlando, Florida, and we're going to explore technology, modernization, and
artificial intelligence.
Explore the latest technology solutions, discover industry insights, and make valuable connections as a global community. It's time to register for Ellucian Live 2025 at elive.ellucian.com.
We're excited to announce the first of its kind higher education podcast conference, brought to you by Edu Alliance, the EdUp Experience, and Podium. This is happening Saturday, July 12th at the University of Illinois Chicago campus. This is an in-person event, one day only, the first of its kind. This is for people working in and around higher education who are interested in starting a podcast, who may have a podcast, want to learn more about podcasting. So if you want to be there, please go to higheredpodcon.com. That's higheredpodcon.com to learn how you can get your early bird registration, see who the keynote will be, and how you can submit proposals to be a part of this amazing inaugural conference. So that again, go to higheredpodcon.com to learn more. Do you want to get exclusive early access to ad-free episodes, extended episodes, bonus episodes, original content, invites to special events, and more? Do you want to accelerate your professional development? Do you want to get all this while helping to sustain EdUp? Then go to edupexperience.com. That's EDUP experience.com and become a subscriber today.
It's been pretty smooth, the transition. I have to be honest. I think my entire career has prepared me for my role as chancellor of the CSU. You know, I've worked in so many different systems. First of all, I worked in the community college, and then I worked at a four-year institution, and then I worked at a research one at Arizona State. And my first presidency, quite frankly, was at Berkeley College, where I had 5, which ended up to be 7 small campuses, and I was like a chancellor. They called me a president. So all of these tools that I've gained over the years, including ASCU, by the way, where I'm learning from almost 400 presidents across the country about all types of institutions and the problems and challenges and opportunities they have prepared me for this role.
Amazing.
You are serving so many stakeholders all the time. We're going to talk about balance a little bit later, but when we talk about college presidents, you have a lot of college presidents within the Cal State University system all across the state. The job of a president is not easy. It's not an easy gig. Nobody's like, hey, you know what? You want to make a nice, easy paycheck and have coast? You become a university president. Like, nobody ever said that. Somebody said you're going to be looked at 24/7. Eyes are always going to be on you. Every decision you make is going to be dissected. You have multiple stakeholders are serving all the time. There's a lot of stress that builds up. How do you serve the presidents? Mentally, is it training? Is it a shoulder to cry on? Like, what's the biggest way you serve?
Well, Joe, it's all of that, right? As a chancellor, my job is to serve and support our presidents to try to make their role a little bit easier and be their shoulder, of course, if they need that, but also advice, providing professional development if they need it, providing their team's professional development if they need it, because that's extremely important, right? The team is what makes the presidency successful. And so it's my job to make sure that I and my vice chancellors are serving our presidents in every aspect on how they run their institutions.
What's been the kind of the hot buttons as of late? You know, presidents coming to you going, you know what, I need some support in this area or that area. Is there anything kind of standing out right now?
Yeah, of course, there's lots of things. Number one is the enrollment cliff that's hit California. So how do you manage enrollment? How do you think about others besides your traditional 17 through 21, which is no longer the majority in higher ed anyway? How do we serve our communities? How do we serve our adults who need to skill up to go ahead and be successful in our communities? How do we help them to think about enrollment management in different ways? Because when you were always getting students, it wasn't an issue. But now how do you manage really recruiting and really retaining our students? And so that's been a focus for the CSU. That's definitely one of the major issues.
Yeah, it's interesting too that you mentioned that, because the modern learner is all of these people, right? We have the new majority that is coming up. We have the 18-year-old using tons of technology. We have the 58-year-old using tons of technology. We have everybody in between. And, you know, higher ed, you know this more than I do. Higher ed is engineered to serve an 18-year-old learner. That's why the entire policy structures are usually written. Then you take the 58-year-old who wants to get a degree, and you put them in that policy structure, and sometimes that structure fails them. It doesn't serve them in the right way. Can you talk about how do you do some of these things? Because you know the modern learner is there. How do we iterate to serve them?
Well, a couple of things. Number one, when I came in, the presidents get together every other month with me. And I changed the title that they had before from President's Council to Executive Leadership Teams. They became the thought partners to talk about how we are facing these very difficult issues. And during our meetings, we get together, We break up into groups. We deal with these difficult questions and come up with strategies together that we can move forward. At the same time, we understand that one size does not fit all. So we make sure that the rural campuses can get together and think about their issues, where the metropolitan or the urban or the big campuses, so that this way we're looking at strategies for the communities. The communities are different. The community in Humboldt is very different than the community in Cal State LA. And so what is it that those communities need? Our institutions are stewards of place. They're anchor institutions that are engaged in their communities and work with those communities in partnership. So it's all of us working together. We've have and will continue to have our student success initiative. And we're now launching from the 25, we're finishing up the 25 to what's the new bold vision. And it is about who are we going to be with our new strategic plan? Who are we going to be serving the very constituencies that you're talking about and making sure that we're listening to what they need and also really paying attention to what the state needs, because 80% of our graduates stay within 50-mile radius of where they live.
Epic.
You know, I got to ask you this because this comes up so many times, and I feel it sometimes in higher education. By the way, that I'd like to go off script, as it were, and just ask random questions, and this is one of those times. But so many people say student success. Like, we always talk about student success, and in higher education, we love our terminology. All of a sudden, student success means all of these different things and doesn't have a lot of definition around it. And then we go, well, what is it that we're talking about when we say student success? But I know you have certain metrics and benchmarks that you're tracking. I just wonder if you could highlight a couple of those, because it gets so ambiguous sometimes when we talk about it.
Absolutely. First of all, number one is that we are offering an affordable quality education. And if you look at our tuition, we're one of the lowest in the country, under $7,000 our students for the full year, by the way.
I mean, that's insane, right? When you think about it, it's crazy.
When you think about it, and 80% of our students get some form of federal, state, or CSU financial aid, and 60% of our students have their tuition and fees covered by federal, state, or CSU financial aid. So it's affordable, it's quality education. Number two, it's retention, retaining our students, making sure that they are staying. And number three, it's graduation, that they graduate with this degree, especially our underserved students that need to graduate and become engaged citizens in our community. Our next iteration, as we look at our strategic plan and look at our student success for the future, is how do we help our students not only graduate, but help every single one of our students to enter into their career or go to graduate school, so that we are helping them in that next step in their journey.
You know, I love it. I love the specificity, because, you know, you've been in so many conversations. I know you have. Somebody goes, well, that's about student success. It's about students. And you go, what the heck are you talking about? And so it's the specificity that we lose sometimes. It's the data that says, here's what we're doing and here's how we're tracking it. And you talk about something, you talk about outcomes, getting a job, ROI, all these things exist. And I know you're passionate about this, the value of higher education. This is a conversation I've heard you talk about it recently, and others. And in my conversations with all of these higher ed leaders, we unanimously believe in the power of higher education and degrees in particular. And somehow we've failed to tell the right story to the public. And we've allowed people who go, you know what, higher ed doesn't have value anymore. Students shouldn't go to college. Somehow we've let that permeate the minds of really everybody. And you just wonder, I've asked this question to many people on the podcast and go, who is this parent or spouse that goes home and goes, you know, you really shouldn't go to college. You should do something else. Like, what does that conversation sound like? And so we have to like fight back a little bit more, don't you think? What's going on?
Well, I have a lot of thoughts on this, Joe, as you well know.
I know, that's why I asked you.
Number one, let's look at who's asking those questions. My question to these individuals is always, is it your children or your grandchildren?
It's probably neither of those. Yeah.
And when we look at their backgrounds, their children and grandchildren have gone to college, some of them to the best colleges in the country regarding tuition, not quality. But second of all, we also have to take responsibility. We have to make sure that we are not only using the narrative of our students and our alums, but the data of where they go and what are they doing in life. We have to show the proof is in the pudding. Show them the facts, but also tell them the narratives. We have to do both and keep hitting on the issue that if you look at all the research that is done, a college degree is still the entree to the middle class. It is still what prepares students to become engaged citizens in our community. It is still a public good as well as a private good, and it still transforms families. You know, I heard a demographer a very long time ago and said, if we don't educate our population, who's going to pay your Social Security?
Mm.
And that's a really interesting twist on it, because quite frankly, that hits you immediately in your pocketbook.
That's such a great point. What do you think, how do we do that? How do we fight? But, you know, like I've talked to Elvin and we've said, you know, we started off this podcast randomly. We're just like, we're going to start a podcast. And then we started talking to people going, man, we could really use this to help leaders get their voice heard across all types of colleges and fight back against that narrative. We're one channel. Are there other ways that you have or think about where really any university president that's looking to start to dissect that narrative could do?
I think as a system, we are in a prime position to do that.
Yeah.
When you think about that, we educate and graduate between 120,000 to 130,000 students a year. If we can get that data that shows where they're working, what's their salary, what kind of jobs, that they are contributing to the communities, because we educate the social workers, the nurses, the health profession, the teachers, all of the workers of California. And then we have the entrepreneurs. We have CEOs that have graduated, you know, the Kashi family, for example. I know the Kashi family. They were alums of the CSU. So those are the kinds of, but we have to do it not ones or twosies. We have to do the power of the numbers. And if we do it by systems, and I think the CSU can lead in that, and you take all the systems in the country and do that, people will start to say, hey, wait a minute, we better start listening. The other thing I will say is that we have to continue, I know the CSU does it, but across the country, we have to continue to go into our communities and speak in their language and in their space. When we go into the Vietnamese community, when we go into the Tongan community, when we go into the Hispanic community, Black community, and you bring in people that they can relate to talk about, and alumni, you start to see the power, and they start to say, hey, wait a minute. If that person is a first generation like I am, and they got there, I can do that too. And then if we give them the steps on how to get there, right? What is it that a student should take starting in junior high, going through high school to get into the CSU and have support services to have that, and then do things like direct admissions? We're on the track of doing what we have to do.
That's a fact. That's a fact.
Direct admissions is an important part of this too, because it takes away so many of the barriers. You know, we in higher ed, and I, again, these are concepts that I like to bring up. If you actually look at us as humans, what we do in our personal lives, I don't know about you, Millie, but I am a serial introduction skipper on Netflix. If there's an intro and it says skip, I don't wait. I hit that button. I do.
I do too.
Yeah, exactly. The buy now button on Amazon is like it's like kryptonite. You know, it's like, I guess it's pretty easy for me to buy. I'll just buy it. So everything is made really easy. And in higher education, it's not always that way. There's lots of bureaucracies, but direct admissions is one of those ways that we hit the easy button. Can you talk about what you think or what you know direct admissions is doing for the Cal State system or for the communities that need it the most?
Well, we are now doing a pilot in Riverside County, where every student that is eligible will get a letter saying, congratulations, you have been accepted to the CSU. Here are 10 institutions for you. And when they pick that institution, then we will support that students to get through. Now, think about this for a moment. You are a first generation college student.
Yeah.
You are scared about college. No one in your family has gone to college, or you're poor and you say you can't afford it. and then you get a letter saying you are admitted to the CSU.
Surprise!
They will look at that and say, okay, let me figure this out. And it gives them an entree to get someone who will help them get through that process. I think it's invaluable. It helps the families. It helps the communities. We have communities in the CSU that the people who own the stores, who have the businesses, are all graduates of that institution. They're lifting that community as well as helping themselves have a really satisfying life.
Love that. And it's funny because yesterday I was talking to a college president. He's out of a private college in Buffalo, New York called Canisius, and he's from Trinidad and Tobago. And he was talking about how so many families where he was from were like, if we just get one of our kids to college, just one. Because we were talking about how sometimes in the U.S., I think we take for granted the fact that we have this ability to go to a higher education institution. We take it for granted. And then you look at all the populations that immigrate to the U.S. or those that are out of the country, and the value they feel for higher ed is like unmatched than anything in their lives. It's this giant North Star, and they go, if I could just dream big and get this thing. If I could just get one kid to go to college. You're saying now you've got a family in Riverside. Maybe they've come from another country. They're here. They've got a couple of kids. Those kids get older, and every one of them has direct admission to the CSU system at some point because they're there. And you think about what that does for generational wealth.
Exactly. And when you think about this, 50% of our students have parents who never got a degree.
Yeah.
Now you're talking about almost 500,000 students. Think about that. Yeah. And the impact of the CSU to the state of California and to the nation.
And how complicated college looks for all. It's like, you got to do this, you got to do that. To know that you're part of the way there already. I mean, you just think about the mindset change of this is very complicated. I don't know about this to, well, wait a minute. We kind of have to do this now. I can't believe we got to do something about this, right?
Yes, one example of what is still happening at the CSU started when I was president of Dominguez Hills years ago, was a Hispanic fair called Now's the Time, Es el Momento. And what we started with Univision, it was a partnership with the Univision television station and radio stations, is that we did a fair on a weekend, on a Saturday, to begin, and we set it up like IKEA. You know how IKEA is, you go in, you can't get out, you got to go through the whole thing to get out.
Yeah.
So we set it up like that from elementary school all the way to high school. We had different tables, people speaking in Spanish, and they would tell them about what they needed to do for their children in order to graduate all the way through college. And then we ended up with a FAFSA workshop in Spanish. It was the first year. We had people waiting online before we opened. We were giving out water. We had about 5,000. By the time I left Dominguez Hills, and the time I left as a president, it was 40,000 students, 40,000 people on a Saturday. And that we had the anchors from Univision, we had engineers, we had all speaking in Spanish, talking about the power of higher education. We have to demystify colleges and universities for all of our people. And at the CSU, we continue to do things like that. We continue to get into the communities in their language and in their space in order to demystify the process and let them know the CSU has a place for them.
Tell them like it is.
You mentioned Dominguez Hills, which is interesting because recently I had dinner when we were in Puerto Rico with Dr. Thomas Parham, who is awesome. And he wanted me to ask you who your favorite Cal State University campus is. I mean, he told me to ask you that, you know. Are you going to miss Ellucian Live this year?
I don't think so.
Exactly. So you might as well register right now at elive.ellucian.com. Ellucian Live 2025, April 6th through 9th in Orlando, Florida. Do not miss it.
Higher Ed PodCon is coming. Go to higheredpodcon.com. That's higheredpodcon.com to learn more. Do you want to get invites to special events? Do you want to get exclusive early access to ad-free episodes, extended episodes, bonus episodes, behind-the-scenes episodes, and original content? Do you want to accelerate your professional development? Well, you can go to edupexperience.com. That's EDUP edexperience.com and become a subscriber today.
Well, it depends on where I am on the day.
Have you been talking to any politicians lately? Shout out to Thomas Parham, Luke Wood, a couple of interviews that I've had. Luke's in Sacramento, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Absolutely. I have to tell you, I have 23 amazing, powerful presidents.
Yep.
They, in their own right, are leading amazing institutions and doing the work that is really powerful and contributing to the students, their families, and the state and the country.
Teniente Matson at San Jose State, which Cynthia, I told her this because I interviewed her not that long ago. She was at a university in Texas, I believe.
Right.
And we, for whatever reason, we couldn't get her on. Over a course of like 8 months, we kept rescheduling. She'd reschedule, we reschedule. And then she goes to San Jose State, and we finally get her. Since we had chased her that whole time. But I mean, you're talking about a major economic impact. I mean, we know the state of Florida, the economic impact of the state of Florida is like the 5th largest GDP in the world. So we're talking about training these people, trying to keep them in the state, right? Which I think is an important part. And I think that's the vision of the educational system, but also simultaneously, and I know you're passionate about this, the first gen, people of color, those that are coming from lower economic backgrounds. You have so many people across the state of California that need to be lifted up. This is your jam, right? Like this is your jam. What makes you so passionate? I mean, you've devoted your life to this.
I devoted my life to it because I'm one of them. It is who I am. It is what I remember. Just a really short way of saying that I am a first generation college student. My parents migrated from Puerto Rico to Brooklyn, New York. They had 5 children. They supported those children on a factory salary. And 8 years after they arrived, they had 2 surprises, my brother and I. And so we're the New Yorkers in the family, and my brothers and sisters are native Puerto Ricans, but we were brought up in that culture. And my parents always told us that the only inheritance a poor family could leave you is a good education.
And that's the truth.
And they drilled that into us. And I am the first in my family, not because I'm smarter, because I had opportunities. It's about opportunities that were open to me and my brother, because we were sent to a very exclusive school district as they were trying to integrate when my brothers and sisters did not. And so here I was having violin classes and learning French and going to museums and going to Broadway plays that my parents would never be able to afford. And so here I am. And I always vowed that I have been given so much benefit and so many blessings because of my foundation in public schools that I would dedicate my life to that.
Well, I have to tell you, Millie,
I'm going to hang out with you until the end of time.
We're gonna be friends. I do have to know, do you speak French or play the violin at this point?
I do speak French, not very well. I am during COVID. I picked it up again as something to keep my mind off what was happening while we were at home all the time. I do not play the violin. I broke my finger and I cannot play violin. But
Fair.
I listen.
1 out of 2 is pretty good odds.
And not bad. Not bad. And I still go to Broadway plays and I love museums.
Hey, roulette in Vegas still 50-50, so not bad. I want to transition a little bit to leadership. And you've been leading institutions for a long time. We have a lot of people that listen to this podcast that are leaders, aspiring leaders, devoted their lives to higher education as well. What has made you so successful as a leader of institutions and a leader of leaders? Do you have a philosophy? Do you have a framework? Do you have anything that we could take away and go, oh, that's really interesting?
Number 1 is continuous learning what's out there as much as you can. Number 2 is, especially for those of us who are underserved in this field, is go through those doors that are open for you, even though you're scared. And take those opportunities, look at different opportunities, learn as much as you can about opportunities. Number 3, be as good and maybe better than everybody else. Make sure that you are seen as someone who is really committed, that you are working hard. I know it's difficult, but it is about letting people realize your potential. For me, it always was someone saw potential in me that I didn't see in myself, but it was because I was dedicated to my work. So it's that as well. It's holding myself accountable, and as a leader, holding people accountable. I have goals, but I make sure my leaders have measurable goals, and making sure that if I can't meet them, speak to my supervisors about that. Everybody has a boss. I have a board of trustees chair. Um, but speak about why you can't get there and what can we do about it. But try to meet those goals in order to move the institution forward. And then always remember, it's not about you. Do not believe all the accolades and all the goods. It's not about you. It's about the institution and the mission. And to do the hard part, which is never been easy for me, never will be easy for me. But if I have to let someone go because I've done everything I could, that I may like this person, I gave them goals, they can't meet them, I get them a coach, and at the end of the day, they're still not meeting, you have to help that person find a different place. And that's very difficult to do, but has to be done.
Yeah, especially sometimes when those people are passionate about students, but somehow can't do the job that that's hard. It's also hard to amend universities generally, programmatically, curricular, so many committees. When you work for a state university, there's committees and collective bargaining, and sometimes there's all these different nuances for state-run universities. How do you affect change? I mean, you're at the highest level for the Cal State University system, so when change has to happen and you have to help lead through that change, the number of nuances across 23 institutions is 23 times what you would have if you had one institution. I mean, what great math on my part there. But you have 23 presidents and perspectives, and how do you affect change effectively?
Several things. You work with the constituencies you have, you make sure you bring together all those individuals, and you demonstrate on a clear and authentic of what the issues are. Why is it that we have to change? What does that mean? And usually it's about people. People want to know, what does that mean for me? Well, we have to be very clear and authentically explain why. Then what we're doing now, the CSU hasn't had a strategic plan in over a decade. We are putting together a strategic plan that will look into the future for the next 3 years. We can't do more than 3 years today.
That's right.
Before they were 5 and 10.
Artificial intelligence.
Right. Everything is changing, right, with AI. So we do 3. We look at, this is the direction we're going. This is where we want to go. And we're going to keep our mission. We keep our values. But what are the priorities for those 3 years, right? And when they're willing and say, this is where we're going, we keep moving. And usually people that stay on in the middle will say, oh, maybe we should get on board. And then you'll always have the naysayers. But when the naysayers see that you are accomplishing things that they didn't think you could, some of them will join.
I was talking to somebody recently. I do so many of these sometimes. I can't remember who it was talking about change management or change leadership, because there's a difference, where you spend like 80% of your time trying to convince the 20% of the people that are absolutely not going to change, instead of spending 80% of your time on the 20% of people that are your trailblazers that can affect, right? Because we as leaders, we want to convince everyone. It's in our nature. We want everybody to come along with us, but that's not always natural, right? It's not that it's not natural, but it's human nature that there are just going to be some people that need a different way to come along.
Just look at families. We don't agree on everything when we get together, right? So what do you think about people that aren't your family? You have to realize you got to go with the coalition of the willing and keep moving.
Yeah, in my family, vodka or tequila conversations are often. No, I'm just kidding. We drink both over here. But you have so many stakeholders you're managing. This is what I find fascinating about chancellors of state systems. Politicians, you have the funding committees. I'm going to get this totally wrong. You'll correct me. But the politicians, the representatives, the funding committees, which there's always a committee for everything. You've got your presidents. You've got their teams probably that you're in touch with in different ways. You have interim presidents. You have vacancies. You have the public that wants to weigh in on who's going to take over this institution. You have the general public at large. You have students. And then you only have one head to go crazy on all that kind of stuff. How do you keep it straight without running yourself into the ground
Well, that's a very good question. I'm not going to lie to you. This is a 24/7 job. I am now in this job a little over 15 months. And I will say to you that is the surprise that there is no downtime. However, you do have a team of vice chancellors, and your expectation is that they're going to take some of this load up, right?
Yeah.
So that you're not doing this all by yourself. Again, I go back to the chancellor is as good as the team that they have, and how we continue to serve all of these constituencies. You didn't even mention students because we have a student government that is
Yeah.
system wide. So I'm meeting with that person. And so how do we kind of divvy up by keeping me informed when I delegate, keeping me informed of what's going on, and us talking about what are the issues that are confronting us, and me making sure that we're working as a team to lead the system. It's not easy, but it's certainly doable. And if you're passionate about it, if you wake up every morning saying, "Thank God I have this job because I'm serving all of these students," then it's the way to go.
How do you keep your mental capacity in check? You hit the beach, you take some trips. What do you do to keep yourself fresh?
Well, definitely I meditate about 10 minutes every day. I work out with a trainer 2 times a week. On the other days, I do it by myself. Um, I do love going out with friends, and I do try to take a vacation. I am scheduling one very soon. So I'm going to take a vacation. I haven't taken one yet.
Do you disconnect? Are you going to disconnect? Like,
we'll find out. It'll be
on a
my
cruise
first
ship
vacation.
in international waters, so there's no Wi-Fi.
I'm going to see if I can really disconnect. This will be my first vacation away from the country, you know? So when you're with family for the holidays, let's be clear, that's not vacation.
No. Who said that was vacation?
Right. However, when I take this vacation, I'll let you know how it goes.
You'll have to. I would be curious to know, like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much you disconnected, and what were the things that made you reconnect if you did, or how did you stay disconnected? Because we have a natural tendency to pick up our phone.
Oh,
We're technology driven, all of us. You know, I talked about Netflix, and you think about all the other things that we do. I mean, how many of us pick up our phone just because we're bored in the moment, and we just pick up our phone and look at it with absolutely no reason to pick it up? And we live in this technological world now, and institutions generally are in need of digital modernization and modernizing the student experience, because now we got students coming in to our institutions. I use AI. I have these 15 programs I've been using with artificial intelligence in my high school and whatever, and I expect that I can use some of this in my college experience. And then we have curriculum that's been there for years that hasn't been updated, which is a huge disadvantage for relevancy of a college degree, the curriculum piece of it. But we have sometimes outdated processes, and we have to modernize the experience, the student experience, so it's like they get in their personal lives. Can you talk a little bit about priorities, technology, digital experience for the student experience, and how important that is?
For us, teaching and learning is like priority for the students we serve, and we've already put together and have come out with recommendations, especially on AI. How are we going to be offering AI so that all of our students and faculty and staff have the opportunity to use a tool, and also think about how do we use it ethically as we move forward? So we're on that. As far as teaching and learning, we do have professional development programs throughout all 23. What's the latest? How do you teach? How do you teach to different students? And one of the things that I speak about a lot is understanding the students we serve. What communities do they come from? How do they learn? Did they speak English at home? What's their first language? Are they first one in college? So all of those things really contribute to who are you serving. And so each campus is looking at that from their perspective. They're going to look at all of that, but within their context. Because the students at San Luis Obispo, Cal Poly, San Luis Obispo, are very different from the students at Cal State LA. And so how do you tailor teaching and learning so it fits the student and the student feels engaged, rather than normal teaching and learning throughout the entire system.
Yeah, and you wonder how eventually artificial intelligence may give us additional tools to update curriculum faster to the workforce. Like, so-and-so company needs this skill. We get told a whole lot earlier in higher ed, and then we can update the curriculum with an AI engine of some kind. That's really, I think, where we can get to, where we start to restore that relevance of a degree, because curricular updates, and you know this, you've probably sat in a provost curriculum committee meeting or two. Sometimes there's arguments over a word choice, and then some degree doesn't get picked up and wait 6 months. And I'm generalizing and maybe sensationalizing just a little bit, but I have been in those meetings, I promise you, and some of them have taken 6 months to come around. That's a huge area for us to improve. Is how does a student experience an institution? How do we want them to experience an institution? Is that too much future think for us in higher ed generally, or do you think we really need to start thinking about that improvement?
I think we need to think about how do we want our students to be engaged, and how do we want our faculty to be engaged. And our faculty is really great. And you see these new faculties coming in. We have to listen to their voices. It's not the administration that's in the classroom, right?
Right.
So we have to listen to the faculty, we have to listen to the student voice, and we have to have the administrators kind of thinking it through and putting it together as we move forward. Our students need to be ready to enter whatever field they want to enter into. And in addition to that, I always underscore, it's not only that, how do they become engaged citizens in their communities? Because we know that once a student gets a degree, they're engaged, they're voters, they're healthier, they're helping others to go to college. All of that is in the data. And so it's not only helping our students, but it's helping our state and our communities.
Speaking of communities, I talked about the Latina leaders you introduced us to a couple years back. We interviewed so many. The presidency in higher education isn't as diverse as the student body. And I know this is an area that you speak about and are passionate about. What do we have to do? That's such a broad question, but how do we get the match that we need and open up more opportunities for people of color to run these institutions?
I think, first of all, we have to convince and demonstrate that this is an amazing position. It's a position of a lifetime if you really do it because of your mission. Don't do it because you want the title. Do it because of the mission. It's not an easy job, but it's a fulfilling job. Because every time I see that we've graduated 120,000 or 130,000 students that are first generation, low income students of color, adults, and from all walks of life, that's pretty powerful that you had a little piece in that and getting those students across. Second of all, we have to connect and make sure that we're looking for talent everywhere. I have had a very non-traditional background. It took me a while, but I got to where I wanted to go because people saw in me that I could do this job. And we can't look at the traditional trajectory all the time. What we have to look is at talent and skills and deliverables and evidence of moving things forward. Number 3, we have to connect with institutions like ASCU, who have professional development programs from becoming an administrator all the way to becoming a president, a provost, a vice president, etc. Who's the talent? Then we have to help people understand to find the match. I've always known that I wanted to be in an urban metropolitan area. I don't find anything wrong with rural, but I grew up in New York City.
You're in Brooklyn. You're not going to go. Yeah. I mean, you're not going to go to a Four Corners somewhere.
You have to know that about yourself and not just apply because a job is open and they're offering it to you. And then you have to make sure that the search committee and the president or chancellor are very honest about what this person is walking into.
Do you think that there's not complete transparency sometimes?
There will never be complete transparency because the appointing committee doesn't really know what's really going on inside.
Right.
But there are things that they do know. Is there a budget deficit? What's the enrollment? Have they been meeting enrollment targets? What's the financial situation?
Yeah.
We should be, I really praised Charlie Reed when I took Cal State Dominguez, and when I took Cal State Fullerton, because they were very clear to me. Here are the issues and the problems here, and this is what you're going to have to confront. And with that, I walked in with some knowledge and some advice on how to move those institutions forward. So we have lots of work that we as institutions have to do, and work that our candidates have to do. They can't think that just because they finished their doctorate, they could become a president, which sometimes happens. There's work that has to be done along the way.
Got to earn your stripes a little bit. I think this because you have to know that you want a presidency, and there's a reason I think why that tenure, the years of a college president continues to decline, because maybe people are going into it without fully going into it. To your point, if you want to be in a city, in an urban setting, and you go to a rural, you're not going to be there that long. And maybe not because you don't believe in the mission, but because you don't like where you live, and that's powerful too, right? You got to go to the right spot.
You have to, it's one of the things I started when I was a vice president of academic affairs at Montclair State. I made sure that whoever we brought in that was different from the community we had, they knew where they could get their hair done, where they can get their food products, what church they can go to, where the children can go to school, because that's important to you. As a single woman, I need to be around people, and then I'm going to be all by myself. I knew I couldn't do that. I can't be quiet for 5 minutes.
Oh, I know. Me neither, which is why I have to do the podcast to get it all out. You need to start your own podcast. Not that you have any time, so forget that.
Oh, yeah. Plenty of time.
Just come co-host with me when you get the need. But I want to kind of wrap this up because I want to keep you on time, but I want to ask you if there's anything else that you want to say about the CSU system, anything at all on top of your mind, and then I'll move to our final question.
First of all, I think the CSU is the most influential, predominant system in the country, the largest by number system in the country, who is educating the America's new majority. As I said earlier, includes everybody from every walk of life. You name it, we have it. These students go back. 1 out of 10 in the state that are graduates have a degree from the CSU. 1 of 20 in the country.
Actually, if you just think about that statistic, that's mind-blowing. I had no idea.
It's mind-blowing. We will be the model system in the country that demonstrates how to educate a diverse population from all walks of life to move on to a satisfying career at an affordable, quality education. That's the power of the CSU. We are contributing to our state, our nation, and to the students and the generations of their families for the rest of their lives. That's powerful. That's why I'm here, because of the work that we do. I have a powerful group of 23 presidents, vice chancellors, faculty, staff, and amazing students who make it fun for me to stay every day.
What do you see?
This is my passion.
Yeah, I could. Well, and you're also a strategist, and you always have to be forward-looking. What do you see for the future of higher education? Ellucian Live is taking place April 6th through 9th, 2025 in Orlando, Florida.
You just made the list!
Get ready for an unforgettable experience at Ellucian Live 2025. Join visionary leaders from institutions worldwide as we dive into groundbreaking ideas, cutting-edge solutions, and transformative best practices that will ignite your passion for innovation. This is your chance to connect, collaborate, and propel your institution into the future. Do not miss out.
Let's go! Did you buy your tickets yet? Higher Education's first podcast conference is coming July 12th. Go to higheredpodcon.com, higheredpodcon.com. Get your tickets. Do you want to accelerate your professional development? Do you want to get exclusive early access to ad-free episodes, extended episodes, bonus episodes, original content? That's right, original content, invites to special events, and more? Do you want to get all this while helping to sustain EdUp? Then go to edupexperience.com. That's EDUP experience.com and subscribe today.
Higher education is at a crossroads, and it is about educating our citizenry and making sure that we are lifting our country. Just imagine if we do not educate the citizenry of this country and what will happen to our country to begin with.
Yeah.
In addition to families and students, we will be more technology institutions. We can't walk away from it. I'm reading books now that say we have to embrace it and harness it in higher education, to use it for learning, to use it for efficiencies, to use it to help our cities and states. We have to harness what's coming before us. We have to make sure that we're constantly, you said, proactively thinking, what are the trends? AI is a trend. A diverse populace is a trend. Positions that we don't even know we're preparing students for is a trend. What are we doing so that our students are flexible enough, agile enough, so that as occupations change, they can move in and out? Because you're not going to stay in a position anymore 20, 30 years as they did years ago. That's what we got to do in higher ed, and make sure we're doing it with excellence, affordable, and with compassion to the communities we serve.
Well, I got to tell you, it's always great to talk to you. Not only are you motivational, which is, I think, a key part of what you have to do too, is you have to motivate everybody. But the passion that you have from your background all the way to the students you're serving, obviously we've been following your journey and will continue to do so. We hope you had a little bit of fun. Was this a break for you, or did this feel like work?
No, this was a break.
All right. We'll take that. I don't know if there was a moment of hesitation in there or not. Amy, who works with you or for you, said I could have you for another 45 minutes. Amy, I don't know why you did that to me, because I had planned for at least 15 more questions. We're going to have to talk about that. But it's an honor to have you back, Millie, and I'll probably see you out on the circuit, as it were.
Yes, I'm sure we will. We'll see each other soon.
And we'll talk more, and I appreciate you so much. I know higher education appreciates you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, she's the one, the only Dr. Millie Garcia. She is the chancellor at the CSU, Cal State University System, and you just upped